afternoon, everyone. My name is Tashira Wheeler. I'm the president of Social Justice Matters. We'd like to welcome you this afternoon to our membership meeting. But it's a special membership meeting because we are so grateful to have a poetess in our midst to celebrate National Poetry Month. But at this time, I'd like to just read a quick statement in remembrance and recognition of the National Holocaust Remembrance Days. On National Holocaust Remembrance Days, we pause to honor the 6 million Jewish lives taken and the countless others targeted by hatred and tyranny. We remember not only the immense loss, but also the enduring responsibility to confront anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of oppression wherever they appear. Black and Jewish communities have stood together at pivotal moments in history, from the fight against Jim Crow to the struggle for civil and human rights, and these partnerships continue to be essential today. In times marked by division and uncertainty, our shared commitment to justice, dignity, and equity for all people remains a powerful force for good. May this remembrance strengthen our resolve to stand united, protect one another, and build a world where every community can live in safety and freedom. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to bring forward our Secretary of Social Justice Matters Incorporated, Ms. Amy Winkler.
So I know our guest, Rosemary, because we work together through the New Jersey Faith Allies for Reparations, and I am honored that she agreed to come here to share her poetry with us today. Rosemary Brooks Bittings is a poet, retired guidance counselor, and author of a book of poetry called Me Too, Number 2. It's been described as a collection of poems about relatable subjects that will make the reader think, that's me too. She's also a civil rights activist and integrationist whose work has appeared in the U.S. Congress for Bill SR 40 reparations, as well as local cable networks, newspapers, and magazines. She recently won a No Kings poetry contest. While she enjoys writing about many subjects, social justice is where her poetic passion resonates. As a survivor of the traumatizing Orangeburg massacre, she knows how lucky she is to be alive, to write about any subject, and she enjoys sharing her poetry with others. And with that, I welcome to the podium, Rosemary Brooks Bittings.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and I am honored to be here to share with you some of my poetry. As I say, I know Amy, and she is such a diligent worker. We work on the reparations committee together, and so I am absolutely delighted to be here. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of my poems from my book called Me Too, Too. I've selected a couple of poems and of different varieties, but I'm going to start with reparations. And what I'd like to do first, and then I'll entertain questions if you have any, is give you a little background on why I wrote about reparations. Well, in 1968, when I was in college, I had a very traumatic experience, and I am now known as a survivor of the Orangeburg massacre. It was in Orangeburg, South Carolina. I was a senior at the time, and basically what happened was the National Guard was called on two black colleges. We were right next door to each other. The report was that we were militant students, but really what happened was, in the town, there was one bowling alley. And the bowling alley had a sign right in the front window, and the sign read, "White only." Coming from New Jersey, I personally couldn't believe that in that day and time, I would ever see something like that. So it took me back in history, but basically what happened is, with the organization of both colleges, that would have been South Carolina State and Claflin University, we marched down, led by our professors, down to the bowling alley to ask them to remove the sign because obviously it was offensive. And when we arrived there, we were met by the police, which was okay, except they had dogs. And I couldn't believe that they threatened to sick the dogs on us, but they did. And then the fire company was called. They hooked up the hose to actually the hydrant, and they threatened to hose us down like you would have seen 50 years, 70 years maybe before then. And that's when our professors told us, let's go back to campus right now. We turned around in a bit of fear and literally ran back to the campus. When we got there, we were upset, but we were met with news stories, actual news stories, ABC, CBS, whatever, that said we were militant. They said we rioted, and the very next day, the National Guard was called in to put a curfew on the campus of 5 o'clock, and the National Guard was armed. Our students had Coca-Cola bottles that were in the bottles, not the cans. And they protested, our students, that by taking the Coca-Cola bottles, and we were up on a hill and just throwing them down, the National Guard said those were guns and that we were shooting at them. So they shot up the campus. 3 students were killed, over 100 were injured and had to be hospitalized. So anyway, that stayed with me it's still with me right now. And it made me very passionate about trying to do something. And so I was really happy to work with reparations. And now that New Jersey has a huge problem with its being a slave state, it's personal that I have an opportunity to make a difference in the state that I love, and to find out that they were nicknamed the slave state of the North, which is so embarrassing. Everything that is connected to it has shame to it. And it is time that reparations was passed. It's past time. It's been over 400 years, and it started in the 1700s, so this is when slavery started in New Jersey. So I wrote a passionate plea to try to get reparations passed in the state of New Jersey. So that is what's behind me writing reparations. And so I present to you my poem, one of my poems on reparations. We deserve reparations for the atrocities that our forefathers suffered during slavery. We deserve reparations because our harshness was taken with bravery. I think fair compensation would be about $1 a lash for every slave from the first to the last. Then add in interest for all the years that have passed. And one more thing, can you make that a check we can cash? Oh, so you don't like those terms. So you made promises, and when it's time to pay up, you develop amnesia and squirm. Okay, how about what you promised? You promised 40 acres and a mule. No, we don't think we'll get all that, but we will take the cash equivalent. Now who's the fool? You just need to pay us what you owe us. Call it reparations, atonement, redress, call it repayment, call it whatever the hell you want. But you created this mess. Remember how you paid others like Japan? And they bombed us first. And they treated us so worse. But you paid them reparations. So yes, Mr. America, if you really feel ashamed, then pay us what you owe us and really accept your blame. Pay us what you owe us. And when you get to my family, you owe us a little more because I'm part Cherokee. You know you need to pay these reparations, but how do we put a price on that? After all, what are the reparations for prejudice? Simply because we're black. Okay, so at this time I would take discussion on this, but I do have a few points, so you decide how you want to handle it.
Are you gonna keep going and then, we can?
They're all a little different.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Honestly, me too. I can see why you said me too, number 2 on this one. Because everything that you have put into that poem, I feel like you were repeating some of the things that I've been saying, some of the things that my parents have been saying, some things that some of my other family members have been saying. We had a running joke in my family. I guess the government, the student loan people were calling one of my cousins, and she said, well, why don't you take my payment from the 40 acres and a mule that you owe me? And I said, exactly, and I understood where she was coming, the reparations, being denied the education, being denied opportunities, promises that were made but never kept. So everything in that poem, from the very first thing, just resonated all the way through until the very last line, the fact that I'm black, the prejudice, the things that you had against me because of the color of my skin. Just, me too, sister, me too.
Okay. You did anything?
Yeah, no, I still absorbing it, letting it sink in, but
Okay.
beautiful.
All right. My next poem is actually called Me Too. And that one was obviously inspired by the Me Too movement. But it is very personal to me as well too, because as a woman, and as most women, if we have not been in a situation where we have been verbally or sexually harassed, we definitely know someone who has been in that situation. And the shame is that it hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. And the reason that it is worse is because this is happening to our young ladies at younger and younger ages. And now, with the Epstein trial, it just brings it up. And I was astonished at how young these young girls were that got trapped into that whole situation. And so anyway, I decided I would write a poem called Me Too. But like I said, every age of woman, there is no age limit from you hear about senior citizen homes. These poor older women, I'm an older person too, that are actually being molested in these homes. So it starts at a very young age, and it seems that it just goes through the age limit. Anyway, with that being said, one of the things that these women have in common is that they always feel they were the victim. Why me? What did I do to attract attention? And what they need to know is they didn't do anything. They really didn't do anything. And So many people are affected by this, and so many of us escaped by the skin of our teeth. We don't know. Another moment, another situation, walking through the wrong door at the wrong time. It could have been you. So anyway, I wrote the poem, Me Too, and it's in solidarity with these women. And the title is Me Too. So, you've been sexually harassed and abused. Well, me too. You felt helpless, alone, afraid, didn't know who to tell or what to do. Did you ask yourself, what made him target you? Well, me too. Did you want to tell, but wondered if people would believe you? So you sat in the corner, crouched and conflicted about what to do. And who was your abuser? A husband, a boyfriend, an acquaintance, a so-called friend? Maybe it was your boss, a relative, a stranger. For sure, it was some form of man. Well, it really doesn't matter, because you didn't deserve what happened to you. And I know that you are devastated, because me too. So let's make sure this is the last attack he's ever able to do, and get some well-deserved justice for me and for you. It's time to shake off the shame and put our pride aside, then call him out so he has no place to hide. Then say, you had no business taking advantage of me. I found my voice and I'm reporting you. I demand justice. And I will say, me too. Thank God things are not as they were back in the day, when men just abused you and now just walked away. When we say no, we mean no. And that word is universal, no matter where you go. So, Mr. Abuser, you're going down. Because with the new Me Too movement, there's a new sheriff in town. So you better be careful of what you force somebody to do, because they're going to make you pay. And that includes me too.
Wow.
Anything?
Absolutely. I love the fact that you acknowledge the victim and that the pain that they were feeling, but there's a sense of empowerment that we are not the victim the way somebody else. We don't want anybody to feel sorry for us. There is still power that we can take from that situation. We didn't deserve it, but there is a power that we still have. And you know what? God's gonna get you. It's gonna come, that retribution, that revenge, even though we want to take it out, it's gonna come on you. And me too, we stand together. I mean, from the beginning to the end, just absolutely, just powerful, very powerful.
Yeah. I love that you look at it and, you know, have you sat in the corner and wondered what to do and who you're gonna tell and this and that, and it's yeah, it's just so often, you know, what did you do to bring this on? You know, what were you wearing? Were you drinking? Were you, you know, did you lead him on? Did you say this or say that or do whatever? There's no talk about, there's so much talk about teaching women how to avoid these situations as if they were avoidable. There's no talk about teaching men to not do this in the first place.
Exactly.
So,
And it's interesting that the Me Too movement really started in 2004, but it didn't take traction until Harvey Weinstein, until his victims came forward, and that was in 2017. So it's almost like it needs a face.
it needed a bunch of famous people.
Exactly, and famous people you know, to bring it to the highlight of justice. And I think what's also interesting is that it maybe appeared to die down a little, not really, but how apropos it is today with Jeffrey Epstein, which means that it should never have a period when it has died down. It should always be in the forefront until we get to a point where people no longer have to fear retribution because they are a female, and now a male, and now a male, and be the victim of someone else. Okay, all right, I'm going to move on. Now, my next poem is called Collusion. I don't know if that word means anything to you, but I wrote this one during the first term of Trump's presidency, which was 2017 to 2021. And I'm looking at this, and again, I'm saying, oh my God, I need to write another poem. I gotta update. But what's interesting about this one is that while it includes a lot of things he did during that time, and as bad as it was, there's so much more going on now. So I guess when I write my next poem, it will be part 2. But this one is called Collusion. And as I'm reading it, it will take you back to his first term and remind you of some of the things that we did, and we were shocked then. Oh my God, this is the worst thing we've ever experienced as citizens of the United States, only to find out there would be a part 2. All right, so I call it Collusion.
I told you it wasn't done. Yeah.
The collusion, okay. I had a great revelation about this presentation. The subject is the leader of this free nation, who helped the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer by the laws he passed during his administration. A man who uses his mouth for the falsification of authorization to disseminate wrong information about the underclass in this nation. A man whose manipulation and fornication has led to illegal dealings in the Russian nation. A man who has spent less time in the White House, but has caused more destruction in our house since the initiation of the Emancipation Proclamation. A man who is a bigger liar than the boy who set his pants on fire, who claims he's not a racist, but refuses to go places where the majority of people are brown and black. A man who's involved in collusion, causes confusion, is a master at deception with a tweeting sensation, and now deserves a long incarceration. Can you say Trump?
You hit the nail on the head, but we see it affects even now. Everything, you know, I can't wait to hear part 2 of this. And how you take it from the part 1, like, okay, we had a pause, but here we go again. And we're back in the story, back in the saddle with him, but still nothing has changed. Everything that he set out to do, the destruction, the lies. Now, putting it in and twisting and turning it and bringing us all back to a situation where we've seen before, but trying to, again, dig our way out of this. Like, we've been here before, we've seen this type of person before, but how we want to dig ourselves out after this.
Yeah, it's pretty profound. It's almost like history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Worse this time.
Yeah, absolutely worse.
We got our work cut out for us.
Yes. Yes.
We do. We absolutely do. And because he has affected our lives in so many ways, ways we didn't even want him to, but we don't know, we turn on the news every night. You know, even though, we're hearing things we don't want to hear, okay, it's affecting us, really is emotionally, it's affecting us. What we really need to understand at the end of the day is that we will too get past this. We absolutely will. And it will be a lesson. The kind of lesson it's going to be is, we'll look back on this and we will say to ourselves that we are stronger Americans because we were able to get through this and did not let this destroy us as people, our conscience, our morals, and everything else, and then wait for justice to finally catch up with him. So in, yeah. And so in saying this, we sometimes look at ourselves, and I think we're so hard on ourselves, all of us. So I wrote a poem, and this poem is called Functional Family. I'm not gonna say anything about it because I think it kind of says everything as I read it, but hopefully after I finish reading this, you'll think about yourselves and realize, hey, we're okay, we're pretty normal, like we are. Anyway, it's called Functional Family. Show me a functional family. I think just one will do. Show me a functional family. And does that family include you? Well, it really doesn't have to. It really does not have to. Show me a functional family where everyone knows their roles. You know that perfect functional family where everyone does what they're told? Show me that functional family where everyone knows exactly when to be meek and when to be bold. Show me that functional family. Surely, you must know the one with perfectly functional parents who have functional daughters and perfect functional sons. What? You don't even have one on your list? Could it be I fear? You don't, because one does not exist. And that's functional family. Now let's get to the last one. And I will leave you with a little lighthearted. Well, I did have one before that, but I'll just get to the last one. And this one is called Love Is. I did Love Is because I started thinking about my own relationship, you know, being married, and I'm a widow now, but I have children and their relationships, and your family and your friends, everybody has some sort of relationship. And we all had a dream of what our relationship was going to be. And sometimes it turned out that way, sometimes it didn't. But at least everybody had a dream. And so this is kind of in my way of keeping the dream alive. I'm usually asked to do this one for weddings and anniversaries and engagements. And it's called Love Is. They say that love is patient. They say that love is kind. They say that love is felt more when it's genuine. But I say love is strong, and I say love is tough, because love has to be there to survive a lot of stuff. I say love is tolerant and forgiving too, and you're going to need to use both of them for the things a relationship goes through. Please take out the garbage. I'm listening, so what's on your mind? Oh no, don't tell me I caught you looking at her behind. Love is happiness, and love is tears. Love is having someone to help you face your fears. Love is still loving you when the bills are just a little past due. Love is just holding you tight when that's the only thing you can manage in the middle of the night. Love is telling me I look good when I know I look a mess. Love is giving me encouragement when I failed a major test. Love is being loving when his six-pack has turned to a gut. Love is exactly that word you need when your relationship is in a rut. Love has no boundaries. Love does not judge. Love is a place where there is no grudge. Love has no beginning. Love has no end. Love is a battlefield where both lovers can win. All right, so I've shared with you now some poems from different sections of my book. I hope you enjoyed them, and it's ending on a high note of love and whatever.
Please tell us where we can get your book.
Okay. It's on Amazon. I did bring some with me, mainly because I guess I'm just always in the habit of doing that. But it's on Amazon, and I think it's post something on Amazon. I sell it for $10. And if you're interested, you can get it there. Any questions for me?
I know that some of your inspiration came from a lot of your life experiences.
Yes.
What continues to kind of keep you writing your poems, you know, and wanting to put all of this wonderful information out there? Because you give history lessons, and even with your poem about love, you know, that one really spoke to me, and I wish you were at my wedding to go through and read that one. Actually, should have been in the marriage counselor. They need you to go to the marriage counselor sessions and read that before people go into the church or to the temple or to wherever to say, I do. But what continues to push you forward to do what you're doing?
The inspiration for my poems come from everything. A lot of it is personal, some of it is personal experience, some of it has to do with friends and family, and some of it I just look at our universe. And like the Me Too. I know how I would feel if anyone in my family had ever had that experience. And someone in my family had near experience, but they came out of it okay. And so I think about sometimes what other people are going through in general, and that might inspire me to do a poem. The smallest thing could. I had a cat, and my cat died. He was with me for over 10 years. Then he died. I wrote a poem. I'm a big believer in social justice. So at any time, I can turn on the television or there's a situation or there's a new matter coming up, and it'll move me to the point where I'll say, I have to do something about this. Sometimes there's nothing you can do at the moment. That poem to me is a way of expressing how I feel. And if I share it with others and they feel the same way, I feel like I'm making a difference. And it's my way of sharing, it's my way of combating a situation that's personal, that eats at you sometimes, and hoping that it makes a difference. I'll use one example. I know what bugs Trump, and he bugs me. So I've made it my business to go to all of the No Kings March protests, and when they had their first contest, poetry contest, it was actually one of our members who entered me. I didn't know she entered me, and then she told me, Marcia.
Oh, Marcia did.
Yes, right.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I didn't even think about it. I didn't think I had a chance of winning. Big deal. I did though. I did. And it was because of her encouragement. And I wrote about reparations and him in relationship, to that. So I know he hates anything that has to do with large groups of people saying, telling the truth about him. And so that makes me happy,
Right.
and that's inspiring, you know. So sometimes I'm inspired by things that make me happy, sometimes I'm inspired by things that make me sad, sometimes I'm inspired by people who have less than, more than. It could be almost anything, but I don't write it unless I'm passionate about it. And I really do, as I'm writing, I can feel it moving through my veins. I can feel it as I'm writing. If I'm writing faster than I can actually get the words out, that tells me that it's going to reach the population I want to and the way I want it to. So that's part of it.
Yeah, your empathy and your beautiful heart just come through in all of the words.
So it helps with the prose. Thank you so much.
Therapy session. No, I like sitting and, you know, going, like, I love poetry because you're visualizing a lot. It's up to the interpretation of not only the person who's listening to it, you have your own reasoning behind why you wrote, but us on the receiving end, we can interpret it in a whole another light, but find some kind of solace, you know, from the words that you presented. And a lot of it, you know, like especially that first poem, Reparations, like I'm like, okay, yes, there's somebody out here. Like I know sometimes, like when we're in our meetings, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but there's somebody else outside of the choir in another choir singing the same song, and you kind of feel like, okay, we're not in this by ourselves. And so it is therapeutic in a lot of ways, because sometimes you kind of feel like, okay, I'm, you know, shouting, singing, but I'm shouting it by myself and nobody is listening. But there is somebody that's listening and who's championing your same sentiments and reaching more people. So thank you so much for this.
So,
Thank you.
and thanks for inviting me again. I absolutely enjoyed this. This has been a lovely afternoon for me, and sharing my poems with you is always a pleasure. I'm glad that you received them as they were written, and please ask me back again. Okay? Thank you so much.